Hi everyone. My name is Jocelyn. I am a science teacher and I will be teaching at Aspire Lynn. It's a sister school of the school that I did a long-term placement in. So I'm staying in the family. So I think one of the students that really marked me as an educator in a good way is a student with an IEP. In the beginning, he was not challenging, but he was putting a lot of barriers in between how I can help him communicate. He was very adamant, saying that I was going to leave because of the past substitutes that he had left him, and he felt like he couldn't trust the educators that kept coming in, and I tried my best to ease his worries and tell him that I'm going to stay in here for the long haul. And I basically built that kind of relationship with him. I let him see stuff about myself, not too personal, but enough that he grew to be more confident and communicate better with his needs. And I think that's the biggest takeaway that I got as an educator, is always try to create an environment or some kind of pathway for you to create communication with your students, because a lot of the times they're not struggling just in education, but they're struggling at home or in an environment where sometimes they don't feel like comfortable enough to be who they are.
My name is Tanya Goshert, or Ms. G, if you know me in the classroom. I'm teaching at Tenenbaum Technical High School in Glassell Park. I'm teaching 10th grade English, 10th and 12th grade English. I also am going to a family school with Alliance. I was long-term sub for them from March through June. I had similar experiences. I had a hard time. I have like 3 kids I could tell you about at the drop of a hat. But I guess the one student that really got to me was a young woman. I don't know if you guys interact with teenagers, but they have this ability just to ignore you, like a direct question. So she would just like shut down, head down, phone out, wouldn't talk, didn't want to have anything to do with the class. This was not her jam at all. I was not interesting. She was not going to talk to me. And I remember during COVID, sitting next to my kids, there was one teacher who would have office hours and just play games with them, and just have a space for them to come and have no pressure and be that safe space. And that stuck with me so much. So I always opened my room up during lunch and breaks. And she would slowly come in and we would slowly have conversations, and then suddenly we were talking. And suddenly it was, Miss G, I want to pass. I need to pass. I want to go to prom, Miss G. Miss G, I'm going to prom. I said, well, that's fine, but then I have a bar, and you gotta go over. So it was slow growing, but she was, an ELL student, so English was not her jam to begin with. And by the end of the semester, she had a presentation she created. There was no AI, there was no, copy paste. It was hers. It was her language. It was her understanding. And it was so wonderful to see her present and be proud of what she did. So that will always stay with me.
More than half of the year. And I didn't meet her until probably my second week at school. She had problems with attendance. She was rarely in school. So whenever I did get the opportunity to meet her, I tried to introduce myself, like, hi, good morning, like, my name is Ms. Rojas, she stopped me right there. She's like, I know who you are, and I don't need your help. So I was like, okay, I'll be around here if you need my support. Like, I'll be walking around. You can always calm me down, and I'll be more than happy to help. On her own, she was asking questions. She was raising her hand. She was participating, and she opened up with me a lot more. Not just things related to school, but just her personal life. And that's when I noticed that I had gained her trust. And that really stayed with me, and I feel like that's an important part of being an educator. You are not only there to support your kids, you're the person that they need, or you're the person that you need as well, for them to support you in both ways.
The foundational PD we had, and I remember like a small detail from that PD, and it was that if you have a student who's constantly moving around or very jittery or very disruptive, give them like important tasks and make them like understand that you trust them and all these things, because usually they're not trusted by adults, and so they haven't experienced that. So the second day I went back in the morning when I did attendance, I was like, I want you to take this to the office. And it was really funny because he got super excited and he was like jumping around telling all the other students, you should take me, you should take me. And then he went and, took the papers, and then throughout the rest of the day I kept like having him pass out the papers and all these things. And he still refused to do a lot of the assignments. But it was, the best part was when I was taking him out to lunch, he came to the front and held my hand. And it was really touching. And then at the end of the day, he gave me a little card, and he had drawn him holding my hand. So it was really nice.
But every period was different, but one student who stood out to me, her name was Nicole Torres, I always remember her name. But she, first day, she was very much like, you guys need to pay attention to her, like, she's gonna be our teacher, and everyone was like, no, everyone like always leaves. They never had a permanent teacher before me. Their actual teacher before me was also an in-house sub who had a background in arts, so he had nothing to do with science, so they never did any science experiments. So the first thing that they would always ask me is like, are we doing anything science related, or are we doing a lab, or something exciting? And for her, I remember every time like the class was rowdy and I couldn't get them to get quiet, she would yell out and be like, hey, everyone's like, in not so nice manner, shut up. But I appreciated her being, that voice for me. And I think after a while, she wasn't top student either, but I had my struggles with her too. But I had her for advisory for high school. We have them every single day in the morning. So I got to see her every single day, and I know she had her own struggles that she was going with, and she was actually an older sister, so she's like, I know what it is to have kids around all the time, and like, she's 14 years old, I'm like, oh, like, what are you talking about? But she was amazing, and I always appreciated her in every situation, and after the end of the school year, she came back to me and she was like, Miss, like, I want to let you know that you became one of like my closest teachers at the end of the school year. And she was telling me she wasn't going to come back to the school for other reasons, and then last minute she was like, I'm actually going to stay. So I want to say I had something to do with it. But I'm pretty sure there was many other reasons. But I feel like for me, I really got into teaching for students like her who kind of, are having struggles at home already, and I can tell that they're, they might not have the best time in school, but I want to make sure that they have a good education regardless, because I was a cooking instructor for a year, and then I went to a STEM/gardening club for another school year. But for me, it was just the kids' excitement, like seeing their faces every day, and like, I was still in college during that time, so like for me, it was exciting to just let them know about what I was doing in school, and they were like excited to know about it, especially like as a science major. I had a lot of exciting things, like I was doing like a lab, or I was, I don't know, they just love to hear my stories, so I love telling them. TeachStart is like, I feel like it would be a great fit, and that's when I first heard about TeachStart, and then I was like, okay, I got into it, looked into it, and it was a great opportunity. I had just graduated from college, so it was a great chance for me to actually start my credentialing program and be a teacher, like at an actual school, and like, I like go back and forth. And since I was also an Alliance alumni, so teaching at an Alliance school was gonna be a big thing for me. So I had a lot of connections in terms of like the teachers that I knew, and I already knew the Alliance and what they were about, so I appreciated that. So TeachStart was kind of like that, in between stage of me actually jumping and transitioning to be an Alliance teacher. So thankfully enough, that's exactly how that went through. So because of TeachStart, I was able to make my connections with Alliance, and now I'm a teacher at Alliance.
Things, I forgot about that. And then after COVID, I just spontaneously got a job at a preschool. And my boss was actually the one who was like, you're really good with the kids, you should try this. And coincidentally, my brother got a job as food education at the time. And then he told me about TeachStart, he said it's really cool. And at that time, I was looking into how to get my teaching credential and maybe get a master's, and it was all so confusing. and there were so many steps, I didn't even know what to do. So when he told me about it, I was like, this is great, this is what I need. And it was interesting because before he told me about it, I would have probably been known. I have an undergrad degree in psychology, so I feel like that's what I wanted to do. My first job, just like Stephanie, it was in an after-school program. I started as a coach, so I was in front of the students, I was in a classroom. Then I was able to become a site coordinator, a little bit more like talking to the parents, customer service, paperwork, and all that stuff. And eventually I became a supervisor, which I did even as a supervisor, to supervise the kids or to take a lead of a plan or like impart a lesson or something. I noticed that it was the times or the moments that I was enjoying myself the most. I was still in school at the time as well, so the only thing that I could do was a part-time. So that's the job that I had. But eventually when I graduated, I stuck with the program for a little bit. And then eventually I started looking for a full-time position. I knew I now wanted to stay within education. So I kind of weighed down my options, and I looked at different agencies and different positions. And I think that I landed with TeachStart for a reason. I had my interviews and I had my Zoom meetings and everything. Since it was post-COVID, everything was online. And I really liked their vision. I really liked how supportive they were. And I really liked, like Jenny was mentioning, that experience in the classroom that you get. And I like that they offered you to get that experience as a sub, not only staying as a sub in a classroom, but eventually getting your credentials and becoming a full-time teacher.
Just to be a sub or to get credentials or to get your permit was so confusing and so much paperwork, and just, I have a family, I have a life, I have no bandwidth for this. And so the opportunity to get credentialed, to have support, to have PDs, to have a team around you was so lovely, and was so easy and really lived up to all the promises, I think. So it really made it an easy way, and to get into the classroom too was nice. I think subbing also as the first part really helped. And Pedro said to me, like, I was like, day-to-day sub, really? No. He said, no, you're gonna see all these schools and you're gonna get all this experience, and he was absolutely right. Like I was so much smarter and I understood so much more about what I wanted and didn't want. By the time I got my long-term placement, I could really understand it. And so that was a really good experience. So I'm really glad that.
Jocelyn, what do you want to do with your life? I would have said not a teacher, right? What a turn of events. At first I wanted to be a doctor. I have a biochemistry degree. So I wanted to use that to apply to medical schools and eventually be a pediatrician. But I'm a very much, that was my ultimate goal. Whether it was to be a doctor, whether it was to be anything else, I gave back to the community. And I was like, a teacher. What was another person in my life other than my family that really made an impact in my life? My teachers. So I decided to go into education. At first, like many of us here, I started as a coach at a high school. I got a lot of the experience. About a month or so before I learned about TeachStart, and it was an amazing program to me. It gave me the direct path to get my teaching credential, to get experience while I'm doing the program, and that was a really, really big thing for me, because I have friends that are teachers, but they did the normal teacher program where they did most of their classes and then they got the experience as a student teacher, I believe. And they were like, oh, like going from the classroom, looking at readings and getting the experience, but only in a classroom and not in the actual classroom with students, is kind of a different parallel. So the fact that you can get the experience of getting the information and then getting to do it in the classroom firsthand, experiencing it, is a whole different ballgame, because you get to see how they connect and how they're different in a sense, right? You get to build your own structure of how you want things, of, oh, what works best for you, what doesn't. So
their general attitude, they're very supportive. Christiana's been great, my consultants has been great. It's been really lovely to work with everybody.
I would say the most beneficial part of TeachStart, I can agree that it's all of the support. I had an amazing consultant, Eduardo. I know you're out there.
nobody's here, but they helped me a lot. And also the PDs, like especially the foundational PD that first week, because even though I had taught in a preschool, I had no experience in like an actual classroom setting because it was a Montessori preschool, so it was very different. So all of the PDs in that first week helped me so much and taught me so many things, so I was pretty prepared. Like school and work, because a lot of the assignments I had like were long hours, and it was just kind of hard to get all the schoolwork done on time, so you just have to balance, but yeah.
Everyone, my consultant's on here. I know Danielle is my consultant, but I'm going to be doing it, so congrats to her. But I think most importantly, the study days that TeachStart offers, those study days were like everything to me because I got to catch up on my work from school. So those study days were amazing, and Danielle was always there to back me up because they were always like, hey, like, can we have you this day? I'm like, no, like I want to have my study day for sure.
I would say that the best thing,
Best part and hardest part.
Okay, yeah, so the best part was honestly the entire program. They made the process so much easier. I like being told what to do, okay? Like if you tell me what to do, where to go, I'm gonna be there. So it was an easier process. Having somebody guide me through the process of like getting my teaching credential, where to go on a campus, and also Lisa, shout out to you.